Okay, awesome. Let's go over the notes. So tell me about your trip, starting with why did you go?
We went just like a let's just get away. We had a long trip in June. This was just let's do a short trip over the summer, just
I
kind of
love
a
it.
midsummer getaway, for lack of a better word.
It's been so long since we've been 5 weeks ago.
Only about 6 weeks. Like, oh, we need to go back.
Welcome to the Disney Hack Podcast, where we talk about all things, tricks, and tips for your Disney trips. I'm here today with my good friend Mark Lucas, who just recently returned from a trip from the most magical place on Earth with his family. This is actually the 6th trip that he's taken in the last year, and he has become a hack master, figuring out all the different ways from airfare to ways to navigate the parks, to transportation around the parks and everything in between. And we love to talk about food. We love to talk about photography, but we're going to just kind of walk through his trip report and talk about things that he does different than your typical Disney World traveler, and find out some tips and tricks that you can use on your trips in the upcoming months and years. So Mark, welcome to the Disney Hack. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Trying to recover from my trip.
Yeah, it sounded like a great trip. You guys just got back, what, a week ago?
We got back on Tuesday evening. We've landed about 9:30. So we've been back for 3 days now.
Wow. So you went to the park on the day you arrived and on the day you left.
Yeah, we were lucky. Our flight landed in Orlando at 9:30, so we were able to hop in the rental car and be at Hollywood Studios about 10:15. And our flight didn't take off till about 7:30 in the evening, so we didn't leave studios until about 3 o'clock. And we had to drop off our purple tote at Pop Century, and then we went down to Disney Springs and got a sandwich for later and went to the airport.
Nice. Now you went with your wife and your son, and this, like I said earlier, is the 6th time that you've been in the last 12 months. Why do you keep going back?
Oh, we have so much fun there. We love the detail. We love the experience. We just appreciate all the things that we can do. We can have great meals. We can ride all the attractions that we've just come to love. And every time we go, there's just new and different things that we've never experienced before that we're able to do. So each time it's a little bit different of a trip.
Speaking of new things, you have a new lens that you have for your camera, and you took some amazing pictures that I got to see. How was it being able to get a little bit sharper or clearer image this time on your trip?
It was a lot of fun. Like, I went out and I bought a lens specifically for taking pictures on a dark rides. It's a high aperture 35 millimeter lens, so I was able to get some really great pictures on the dark rides, and that's kind of the Disney World photographer challenge, to get those dark ride photos, and this lens definitely helped out a lot.
Yeah, you were messaging me while you were down there, and you mentioned on several occasions how happy you were with the dark ride images, so that's awesome. I can't wait to see more of the pictures. Let's talk about your trip and start from the flight down, the rental car, everything in between. You guys fly Spirit, and I know we didn't talk much about this before recording, but I know that you are a big fan of flying Spirit. We didn't talk about this much last time, so why don't you take a minute to tell us some of your best tricks for flying Spirit Airlines and why you pick them more often than the others?
So the Spirit works out well for us. We live outside of Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and Spirit actually uses that. It's a smaller airport outside of Pittsburgh. It's about 12 miles from our house. So from a geographical standpoint, we can be at the airport in like 20 minutes. So that's a first advantage of Spirit. It's the only airline that flies out of that. The price, like, we watched the airfare, and the prices we're able to get just by watching and kind of playing the system, we are usually able to fly down for the three of us for between $100 and $150 round trip. And that's not each person, that's for the three of us.
Wow, that's incredible.
Oh yeah, that's great. Now, where you do get dinged at Spirit is there's always the added fee. So when we went down in June and we were going down for 9 days, we had to take 2 bags. So we did end up paying a little over $100 in baggage fees. But for these short trips, they actually make specifically sized bags for Spirit and Frontier, the like ultra low cost carriers, that are designed to fit down in their box for the personal item size. So we have 3 of those bags, and between that and using the compression bags, the plastic bags that you can squeeze all the air out of, we've had a lot of luck getting a lot of clothes into those bags and not having to pay any luggage fees other than for that long trip.
Wow. So for a 4-day trip, you can squeeze everything that you're going to need into one of these specifically designed bags so that you don't have to pay extra for your baggage. That's great.
Yeah, for our 4-day trip, we had 2 bags. Plus, I had my small bag that had all my electronics in it.
Wow, that's incredible.
I like Spirit. I know they get a bad rap, but we've had a lot of luck with them. And it's interesting because Jennifer and I were having this conversation because she's a big Southwest fan, and Southwest gives me the heebie-jeebies with the cattle call boarding. And we were kind of going back and forth about who had it worse because she's like weirded out by Spirit and everything bad that's said. But yeah, I definitely like Spirit, and we've learned how to make it work for us.
Yeah, I think the key is figuring out how they operate, not necessarily making them fit to how you want to fly. If that's the case, then fly whoever you're comfortable with. But for $150 round trip for 3 people, that sounds pretty fantastic to me. I would be okay with that myself. I don't know if the rest of my family would, but I think that's pretty brilliant that you guys can do that.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of you just need to watch. Honestly, it's one of those things where I'm on the website every day or so, and if I have dates in mind, I'm just checking the dates. And like I've learned how to kind of watch, like you can see what the trends are. It's usually like middle of the week they have their best prices, but every once in a while they'll throw something out like on a Saturday. And holidays are big. They like, anytime there's like a holiday, they really like having good prices for those. So just check their website and find a fare that you like.
Do you use their website directly, or do you use a third-party website?
We use their website directly. Now, the one thing about Spirit that's really weird is if you actually go to the airport and purchase tickets, they may even be cheaper yet. When we flew out of Baltimore here for our February trip, where the 3 of us flew for $81, we actually went to the airport in Latrobe, bought our airfare there for the flight out of Baltimore to Orlando, because the actual flight itself cost us 99 cents. Then we just had to pay taxes and so forth. So our total ended up being like $87 for the 3 of us round trip.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's a good tip. So for anybody that's living in Pennsylvania near you, this is the good trick. Or just go to their website and see if you can get a good deal. I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, their website's it's a good website. And like I said, it's just like any other. You just watch and try to like figure out what's the price you're willing to pay, and then once you pick your price, don't go back. Don't ever go back and look and see what the price might do, because it might go down. And unfortunately with Spirit, you're locked in. There's no getting a credit on the difference or anything.
Yeah, so once you're confident you got a good price, lock it in, and then don't worry about it after that.
Yeah, don't ever look again.
I was going to say, so you flew down on Saturday. You mentioned that you used a rental car and instead of using the Magical Express, and I know you told me earlier that you use Alamo and that they have a deal for pass holders. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we use Alamo, and I've looked at the other agencies that have facilities on property, and it seems like Alamo usually for us has the best price. They do have an AP discount. It's 10% off their listed price, and with that, you're able to reserve it, and then if the price drops, you just cancel and go back in like you would any other reservation. So it's 10% off, but there's no deposits. So I've gone in and actually like reserved my car and then rebooked it 6 times like you should on any rental. Like you just keep looking at it because you can cancel out and rebook it. So we've had a lot of luck with Alamo with that. The nice thing about Alamo is they have a program where you can skip the counter. So you do all your information online the day or a couple days before. You get a printout and you just take the printout directly to their garage, and it's just on the bottom floor of the big parking garage, and they direct you to the car or the line of cars, and you actually go to that section and you pick the car you want out of that line. It's a really quick process. We landed at 9:15 and we were out of the airport by about 20 till 10. So it was about 25 minutes. Now we didn't check luggage, so obviously that saved us a lot of time. But we were on our way to Disney World, like I said, probably about 9:40, 9:45.
That's awesome. I love that. And the counter is like, everybody hates waiting at the counter and having to deal with the person at the rental car company. So what a great service that they're offering that.
Yeah, yeah. The website, it's going to ask you about all the insurances and so forth, and like there's no pressure on the website. You can either decline it or take it if you want it. It's not like you're going to get your arm twisted. You're not going to get beat up to try to get you to spend extra money on the upgrade. So you just do it all on the computer a couple days before. You have your piece of paper, and you just go out to the garage, and you're good to go.
That's awesome. All right. So then it's Saturday morning. You've been in town for less than an hour. You've got your rental car. You're heading toward the resort. Where are you staying at?
We're staying at Pop Century, and we actually went straight to the park. We had signed up for the automatic room alerts that Disney does, so we knew that we could go to the park, and we just get on a text message telling us when our room was ready and what our room number was. Anytime you do online check-in beforehand on the Disney website, and now they've actually expanded the My Disney Experience app. You set up your credit card, you put any of your room requests in through that you want to do through Disney. Now I don't do those. I use the touring plans room request, and I'll talk about that in a second. But you do set up all your stuff. You'll get an email saying that you're pre-checked in, you're ready to go, and as long as you have a valid phone number and email address, I'll actually send you a text and an email telling you when your room's ready, give you the room number. You don't have to go to the front desk. You just go to your room, and your Magic Band will open up the door.
Well, that's great.
Now, we use the touring plans online room request for most of our trips. So we go onto the touring plans website and see what rooms interest us, and then we request the specific group or type of room that we want that fits within the category we booked. This trip, since Pop is being refurbished, only the rooms in the 90s wing were done. Now it's about half the room is the 80s plus the 90s as of the time we're taping this. But we specifically requested a refurbished room, and we told them to disregard any other requests we may have had on file. So when we got there, we did get our refurbished room, and the refurbished room was amazing. Like, if this is what they're going to for the values, it's going to make me rethink the values. It has a Murphy bed that has a table and 2 chairs, so it's a lot more open. It has a queen size bed that's always down, and then, like I said, you have the Murphy bed that has the table, and then it folds down to a queen size bed. So it's a lot more open. Yeah, there's no carpet in the rooms anymore. It's supposed to look like wood. It's actually a vinyl, so it just feels a lot cleaner. I'm not a big carpet fan myself. I know some people like it. I actually like the cleanness of the vinyl or the wood or whatever you're going to call it that they're using. It just feels like a lot cleaner of a floor.
Yeah, it's probably a lot easier to upkeep as well.
Oh yeah, I imagine you don't have to worry about staining. I imagine it's just a wipe and go product. They've done some work in the bathrooms. Instead of having a curtain, now they have a sliding glass door. The shower head is amazing. It's actually a rain shower head with an adjustable, removable shower arm. Like, it was nicer than the shower head I had when I stayed at the Contemporary a few months ago.
Wow.
The rooms are really nice. Some people, like, if you've seen the picture, some people think they're a little bit stark. Like, they're painted a very bright white, and like, it's very minimalist, but I liked it. It was different, but like, I really enjoyed it, and I liked how much room it had, and I would definitely stay there again.
Was the price a value?
The price was fantastic. We actually had an annual pass holder rate, and it was $106 a night. So it was a fantastic rate for a non-property room. And that was for like over a weekend in the first 2 days of the week. So yeah, $106 a night was a really good rate, we felt.
Yeah, especially in summertime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think we were at the last couple days of peak season. So we were definitely in the heart of the summer. Although I don't think this summer seems as busy as it has in years past, from what I understand.
That's interesting. Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute when we get to Animal Kingdom. But before we do that, you had mentioned that you guys went straight to the park before you went to your room. Tell me what you did first and why.
So we went straight to the park. We'd actually scheduled our fast passes, and we went straight to the park knowing that our room wouldn't be ready. And we've gotten to the place now with the way Hollywood Studios is, only having the 5 rides open, and it's going to soon be 4, that it just doesn't take us that long to get through it. So we just went straight to the park, knowing that we could get in and out of the park relatively quickly. And knowing we had a 3 o'clock late lunch reservation down at Disney Springs. So we went in, we did a Fast Faster Star Tours. We did standby for the Great Movie Ride. I was really glad to be able to do that before it closed here in a few weeks. We had a Fast Pass for Midway Mania, and we had a Fast Pass for Tower of Terror, which ended up going down, so we ended up just swapping it out for another Midway Mania. So we did Midway Mania twice, Star Tours, and a Great Movie Ride, and we were out of the park about 1:30 after getting there a little bit after 10.
Oh, that's great. Did you already have the text saying that your room was ready by then?
No, we did. There was actually a glitch this trip. We didn't get the text. They said with the refurbished rooms, they're not sending it out because they're worried that people will get in the room and don't realize that they have a second bed. But this is the only time we didn't get the text. So
they're wanting to let you know that there's a change to the room. But that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So you mentioned lunch reservation, or a late lunch anyway, a dinner over at Disney Springs. And I know this is one that you were really looking forward to. So tell me about that.
Yeah, we went down to Disney Springs. We had a reservation for the Boathouse. Heard wonderful things about it. It's obviously one of the newer restaurants that has opened since they've done the refurbishment of that area. And we went down and had a fantastic lunch. They have buckets on the menu. And what it is it's just a bucket of clams with French fries, a bucket of fresh fish with fresh fried fish with French fries, and we ended up doing shrimp and andouille macaroni and cheese, and we ended up just basically passing the plates around the table because I'm sure that's what everybody does in a classy restaurant like that.
Absolutely.
So for the three of us, it was less than $70. So for signature dining at one of the best restaurants on property to eat for less than $70, I was thrilled with that.
Wow, less than $70 for the three of you to eat at the Boathouse? That's fantastic.
Yeah, and after looking at the menu, once we got there, they have a lot of options that aren't that expensive. Yes, they do have the $60 steaks, they do have the lobster, and they do have the higher end stuff, but they have a lot of sandwiches, they have burgers, and I don't think it would be difficult for most families to get out of there for comparable to what they'd probably spend at a nice restaurant at home. If they wanted to. If they want to go get the $60 steak or the $40 dessert, they're going to end up obviously paying way more.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so what'd you do after dinner?
After dinner, we'd upgrade our passes, so we went over to Typhoon Lagoon. Got there a little after 4:30, and it was starting to clear out. There were actually some storms earlier in the day, so the park was pretty empty. It's the first time we'd ever done a water park at Disney, and I will say it was pretty amazing. There weren't hardly any lines. We were able to did one lap on the lazy river just to kind of get the lay of the land, and then we started hitting some slides. And all the slides had one or two people in line, if anybody.
That's fantastic. So a lot of them were walk on in the summertime, in the afternoon when it's the hottest time of day.
Yeah, it was definitely, I don't know whether it was the storms cleared it out or if it was the people were just leaving because they had other stuff going on in the evening, but it definitely cleared out that time of the day. And I would definitely recommend waiting till later in the day to do it. In July, they're open 10 to 8. I do know they drop back to 10 to 6, but even then, I still think in the evening they're going to be a lot less crowded. We were able to walk on to even the new Misadventure Falls.
That's great. Wow. Good tip. So anybody that's planning on going right now, perhaps making plans to upgrade if they haven't, or just making plans to go to the water parks. The only times I've ever gone is in the winter, and so it's not feasible for us to go to the water parks, although there are days sometimes that are hot enough. And we did have tickets that would have allowed us to do that, but we've never taken advantage of it. So you've convinced me to do that the next time I go.
Yeah, I was every time I've gone there, we've never even considered the water parks as a possibility for whatever reason. And having done them, they are very nice. They're well themed. They're the nicest water parks I've ever been to. Now, the rides, depending on what you're looking for, the parks are a little bit different as far as what age level would probably be most appealing to each, but they both have some really great things going for them.
Tell me about that, about the age difference.
So our experience was Typhoon Lagoon was a little bit more laid back. The slides were a lot less intense, and they have two family raft rides, And the slides that they do have were a lot more subtle. They have the bigger wave pool that's just giant waves, and then it's calm, so you just have to make it through that one giant wave every once in a while. It just seemed like it was maybe a little bit more family friendly. When we went to Blizzard, the slides were a lot more aggressive. They have the 120-foot Summit Plummet. They have the 90-foot Slush Gusher with the bounces. They have a lot more stuff that's more geared, I think, at teenagers. My son thought Blizzard Beach was amazing. I liked Blizzard Beach, but I could definitely tell it was his favorite, and Typhoon was definitely more my wife and my favorites. But they're both incredibly well themed, and like taking a step back and just looking at Blizzard, like it is an amazing park visually to look at with what they've done, making it look like it has all this snow and so forth.
Well, let's come back to Blizzard Beach in a minute when you go visit that. Did you do anything after Typhoon Lagoon? Did you go back over to Magic Kingdom or anything on Saturday night?
Yeah, we ended up going over to the Magic Kingdom. So, like I said, we had the car, so we parked at the TTC and then took the monorail over. Got there a little bit before 8 o'clock. We had a fast pass for Haunted Mansion, so we knocked that out. And then we went and we stood back and off to the side around a partner statue about a half hour before, got in that little grouping there, because every night that we've been there, about 10 to 9 before they start, they make everybody stand up, and then they have a big push. So every time they do that, we've always found we've ever been able to shift and kind of move up into the center when they do that push. So that's always worked out well for us.
In order to squeeze everyone in, you got to make sure you find the best spot so that you're not pushed out of maybe a good spot that you would have been in.
Yeah, you almost have to think about it like, I need to find some place that I can stand that when they do the push, I can move into the spot I want to be at. And that's what we've done each time. We figured out where we could be, and once they start having people move forward, then we've made our move to get into the spot where we want to be.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, with Happily Ever After being its first summer, clearly this is something that's probably going to be going on until, I would say, even next summer. So where exactly near the partner statue are you guys standing in order to position yourself where you want to be?
We've found that for the best view of both the projections and the fireworks, you want to be probably about 20 feet behind the partner statue. That seems to be a good place to see both fireworks and the projections.
So when you say behind it, you mean between it and the castle, right? Behind where they're looking?
No, behind it, heading back up towards the train station.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, yeah, heading away. So basically you want to be standing with the partner statue about 20 feet in front of you before the castle. Kind
of the midway point on the sidewalk between where the curb is and where the statue is?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be it exactly.
Okay. Interesting. And now where is that going to position you during the show? Is that going to get you much closer to the partner statue, or is it just going to move you 5 feet forward?
Well, we always start back towards the edge of where they have it taped off. And then once they start pushing, we are able to move into that position. So they run the tape around and we just squeeze into there, usually off to one of the sides a little bit. And as soon as they start to pushing, we just kind of weasel our way into that spot where we want to be, like I said, with about us and then 20 feet in front of us, the partner statue, and then the castle in front of that.
I've never experienced the sardine effect.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And the difference between Happily Ever After and Wishes is, because Wishes was more a fireworks show, you wanted to be further back. Because Happily Ever After, it's almost like a projection show that has fireworks sometimes. So you want to be close enough you can make out the projections. If you get too far back, you lose the projections. Although the fireworks are amazing, so I don't know. That's what we ended up doing. We ended up doing once back a little bit further where we talked about, and then the second time we were clear up pretty much right in front of the castle, probably about 50 feet off the stage. So we were more focused on the projections, but we couldn't make out most of the fireworks from that distance.
Yeah, when you're that close, and a lot of them happen right behind it in Fantasyland. And it's blocking the big ones that are launching off from back behind the park. So that's interesting. Yeah, it seems like they're trending a lot more toward projection shows that include fireworks. The Star Wars show is a lot like that. And so it's interesting that they're going that direction. I wonder how that's impacting the ability to enjoy the show from places like the Polynesian or the Contemporary.
Yeah, now I've actually watched videos. I've never done it, but I've watched the videos from the Poly, and it's interesting to watch it from there because you're seeing the fireworks. It's more a fireworks show from that point. So one of these trips we're actually going to end up watching it from either the Poly or the TTC just to see the actual fireworks show and not be distracted by the projections. Because that's the thing, you get so immersed in these projections, oh yeah, there's fireworks too.
That's awesome. So anything Saturday night after you guys went to Magic Kingdom?
Yeah, we went up to the Tangled restrooms and we got our pictures taken, our PhotoPass photos taken holding the lantern. They have a PhotoPass line where they'll take your picture holding the lantern in front of the Tangled restroom, so it looks like you're part of that. And they turned out really nice. We went up right after Happily Ever After and had about a 20 to 25 minute wait. So we were out of that line probably about 9:45. But I'd recommend anybody that knows about that picture and wants to get it, that seems like a good time to go get it, like right after Happily Ever After.
Yeah, I've seen those pictures. I've actually been there when people were taking them, and the line was very long, so we didn't get in it. So that's great you did that.
Yeah, it's something my wife wanted to do, and we had a fast pass for Pirates, but we had told my son that this was something that Jen wanted to do on a bunch of trips, and we just hadn't got it done yet. So we were going to do it, and if we didn't get Pirates, we'd get it the next day. We were out of line and plenty of time to walk down, and we used our fast pass for Pirates, but we didn't need it at that point. It was about 10 till 9 or 10 till 10 by the time we got down there, and they were already taking down the queue, so we walked right on Pirates.
Yeah.
So we got Haunted Mansion, Happily Ever After, the picture taken, and Pirates down that evening. And then we went back to the hub, and we got in line at the Plaza Ice Cream Parlor, and we had our traditional ice cream dinner at the Magic Kingdom.
Oh, that's awesome. So what is the traditional, is there a special ceremony? Is there a special flavor, or do you guys it's just something that you do on your first trip every time?
It seems like something that we've just done the last few trips where like we have that late lunch or that early dinner, and then by that time of the evening we're just looking for something more snackish. And the Plaza Ice Cream Parlor, you stand in line as everybody's leaving, and then usually about the time you're getting out of line, the first Kiss Goodnight is going off. So we watch that, sit down at the table, eat our ice cream, and usually by the time we're done eating and enjoying, there's another Kiss Goodnight goes off, and then we make our way down Main Street. It's a little less crowded at that point in the evening.
Yeah, I love walking down Main Street after at least the second Kiss Goodnight when there's a lot less people out, and try to snap some pictures or find a PhotoPass photographer. I don't know, are they out that late?
Yeah, they've always been out that late than what we've seen, and they seem to really be, it seems to be almost a different vibe, like because everybody that's stayed that late isn't in as much of a hurry, so it seems like almost a more relaxed environment. Like it's the people that know what they're doing almost, and they're just kind of enjoying Main Street with a little bit less crowd, because all you're going to do is go stand in line for the ferry or a bus or the monorail, so you might as well enjoy the Main Street when it's a little less crowded and then go get in your line.
Yeah, it sure beats going and shuffling in line to get out of there. Stopping and getting ice cream sounds like a pretty great tradition. I might have to adopt that myself.
Yeah, and the Plaza Ice Cream Parlor, it's right there on the hub, and they have a lot of like fun options, just sundaes and cookie sandwiches. It's never the same thing that we get, but it's always a fun little treat at the end of the evening to get that before we start down Main Street to head out.
All right. Well, then, anything after that, or did you guys just head back to the room and get some sleep?
We headed back. The only thing I did after that was, we're usually in the evening, we're ferry people. We like to get on the ferry and kind of take the slow ride across. And the ferry line was pretty long, and a couple cast members that work on the ferry came out and said that they were, because it was at that point after 11 o'clock on a 10 o'clock close, they're taking one of the ferries out of circulation, so it's going to be half an hour away from that point. And they recommended either taking the monorail or taking a bus over to the TTC. So we decided we were just going to take the monorail. We started over. The express monorail was actually lined up, clear down the ramp, and heading towards the exit, and it was showing a 20-minute wait. We were able to just walk right up the ramp for the resort monorail, right onto the resort monorail, and one train later we were like heading for the TTC. So I've heard that sometimes they check and make sure you're staying at a Loop resort. This night they weren't, and it definitely worked out well for us. So we were able to be back at the car in a shorter time.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I've heard people say that they've checked them in the past, and if they weren't staying on resort, they weren't allowed to take it. So it's nice to hear that there are actually, on occasion, opportunities to take advantage of that, because that's a really great tip, not only from the Magic Kingdom, but it's one that you can use if you're going to go from the TTC, and the monorail at the TTC for the Express is a long line. You can go and use the resort, and it's not so bad to just ride around and stop at a couple of the resorts, and it doesn't take that long. And besides, once you're in and you got a seat, you're pretty much set, right? You're not standing in line anymore.
We were standing, like we were in a pretty full car, but once we got to Contemporary, a couple of people had gotten off, so my wife and son were able to sit down. And I had a great conversation with a gentleman that used to work for Disney World and now works for Universal. He's trying to convince me I need to go to Universal, though.
All right, awesome. So that was a very long Saturday.
It was. It definitely was.
It's a good thing you had a new room. You got a nice comfy bed.
I will tell you what, that comfy bed was amazing. A queen-size bed in a Value Resort plus his brand new mattress. It was a nice room. I definitely recommend trying to get a refurbished room. And I think Pop's going to be one of the go-to resorts once these gondolas are built. Because, one, you're going to have all these refurbished rooms. Two, you're going to have access to the gondolas.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's move on to Sunday. What does that look like?
So Sunday, because we weren't out late enough on Saturday night, we had an 8 a.m. Be Our Guest ADR. So we were out of our room right around 7 o'clock, hightailing it over to the TTC. We actually got there early enough. We were in the first line of parking behind a premium parking that they offer. So we were actually able to walk to the TTC because they weren't even running shuttles yet. And they weren't running the ferry or the express monorail, so we had to take the resort monorail to get to the Magic Kingdom. So we actually arrived at the Magic Kingdom about 7:45, and they already had the gates open. So everybody was going in at that point. Like, we didn't have to use the early ADR line. Specifically, we were able to just walk in with the general population. We made our way down Main Street. It was definitely less people there than normal, and so we were able to get some great pictures. Got the picture with Minnie and Roy Disney, and we were able to just walk up Main Street and get a bunch of pictures before we went to breakfast at Be Our Guest. We always get the croque madame, which is just basically ham and cheese sandwich with egg and bechamel on it. It's open face. It's always very good. It's like, you definitely pay a premium to go to Be Our Guest, but it's I enjoy the atmosphere of it, and we enjoy the fact that it puts you back there at 8 o'clock. We took our time eating breakfast, like everybody's trying to get through, thinking they'd get in line for Seven Dwarfs. We knew that there was extra morning magic. That's where you pay a little bit extra to ride rides for an hour and a half before the park opens. So we knew that they weren't going to let us on a ride as soon as we were done. But we got out about 7:45 and got in line to ride Mine Train. And they let us get on to Mine Train about 10 till 9. So we waited about 5 minutes before they'd let us get in line for Mine Train.
That's great.
But as we were walking through the queue in Mine Train, we could actually see the just wall of people coming to get in the line to do Mine Train up past the Cheshire Cat, like all the people that were waiting on the hub for the actual rope drop. So it was nice to at least beat that rush. But yeah, we were like a 5-minute wait to do Mine Train. And then we walked over and did about a 20-minute wait for Peter Pan at that point.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
No, it wasn't bad at all. So we knocked out 2 of the longer timed rides pretty early in the morning. We had fast passes for the 3 mountains, and we ended up, like, I convinced my son that we would wait until another day that we were there to do Space Mountain and try to do it at night. That way our eyes had a little bit chance to dilate. Plus, I didn't want to go over to Future World during the day. I didn't want to go over to Tomorrowland during the day. I'm not a big fan of Tomorrowland during the day. I prefer to stay on the side of the park with Liberty Square, Frontierland, and Adventureland. So we ended up swapping our Space Mountain for a Jungle Cruise. But we were able to ride Haunted Mansion standby. We then ducked down and grabbed Pirates standby, and by then we were able to do our fast passes. We caught Country Bears and the Tiki Room, and then rode Jungle Cruise and headed out for the day.
What time was this?
It was around 1:30.
Okay. Not bad. That's pretty good. You timed that just right.
Yeah, like about 1:30, usually the park starts to get really thick, and fast passes start to dry up because everybody has their are trying to get their fourth and fifth fast passes, so they seem a lot harder to get. So we usually, unless we're staying for the parade, try to leave about that point during the day.
Sure, that makes sense. Where'd you guys go for your break?
So after we left on Magic Kingdom on Sunday, we got on a boat, headed over to the Wilderness Lodge, and we had a really great meal at the Geyser Point. I had a bison burger. My son had a crab cake sandwich, and I don't remember what my wife had, but we all had something a little bit different, and it was a nice meal. And it's amazing how Wilderness Lodge, even though you're only like half a mile from the Magic Kingdom, it feels like you're just totally removed from everything. In fact, at one point we ended up walking around Geyser Point, and from the one corner you can actually see Bay Lake Tower, and it's like right there, and you forget how close you are to everything because you're so removed sitting down there on the lake. So then we just took the boat back and then went back to the TCC, got our car, and then headed back to the resort to get changed to head to Blizzard Beach. And had a good time at Blizzard Beach. It was the same thing. We got there about 4:30 in the afternoon, and everybody was starting to leave. We did a lap on the lazy river and then let my son loose on the slides. They actually have where you ride down on like toboggan mats. So I did one with him it's like a slalom, and went down head first with him, and then recovered from that experience going head down first down a water slide on a mat. And so he rode it a couple more times, and then he convinced me to do they call it the toboggan racer, where it's just a straight shot. You ride down on the mat head first, but you just go straight down this ramp basically. And like apparently that thing that we learned in high school about objects fall at the same rate regardless of mass, I don't buy that, because I got off to a slow start and I ended up finishing way before anybody else and going all the way to the end of the slide.
Yeah, I seem to remember seeing a video of that. I'll have to put that in the show notes.
Yeah, it was hysterical. Like, I was definitely not the first one off, but like I think of the fact that I'm taller, like I was able to push my legs up against the wall that they have there to get a nice push off, and then like the fact that I displaced a lot more water, I was able to definitely get a lot more momentum going. So I had a lot of fun with that. But we started to get ready to leave, and he decided he wanted to try the slush gusher. So we decided to let him try that, and he really enjoyed it. I stood at the bottom and just kind of shook my head. And then after he got off the slush gusher, I asked if he wanted to try Summit Plummet, and he did. So I told him go head up. And at that time in the evening, it was at that point about a little bit after 6 o'clock. He went up to the top of the Summit Plummet, and there was nobody else in line, so he was able to walk right onto Summit Plummet and do Summit Plummet. So at 11 years old, he's a lot braver than I would have been at that age or at this age, because I wasn't going anywhere near Summit Plummet. But yeah, it was a fun afternoon. I really enjoyed that water park, and he really enjoyed those two slides especially. I could definitely see where like the older kids would enjoy that park more. The slides that they had were definitely a lot more adrenaline inducing, I guess you would say. Like they were definitely faster, and I would say that would be more like the high speed water park. So, but yeah, we had a great time with that. Headed back to the room, got showered and changed, and headed off to Animal Kingdom for the evening.
Nice. Yeah, you had made special mention that we should talk about Animal Kingdom at night. So tell me about that.
So yeah, Animal Kingdom at night, it's probably my favorite park. Like, I like Animal Kingdom, but at night, Animal Kingdom just seems to really raise its game. We went to Animal Kingdom. We hadn't had dinner yet, so we used mobile ordering, which we talked about in the earlier one, and we actually did fries and onion rings from Flame Tree, and we just ended up following the path. If you haven't done Flame Tree, what it is it has the kitchen and the counter up at the top, and then it has a bunch of paths and then pavilions that are down over the hill that work their way down towards the River of Life. And we were actually able to go down, clear down to a pavilion that overlooked the river, and you could see that they were getting ready to show Rivers of Light for that evening. So we talked to the cast member that works there, and she said, like, they pump in the music and you can see the floats. Now the projections that they shoot onto the water, you can't really make those out as well, but she said it's a nice environment to sit and watch if you've seen it, and if you just kind of want a nice relaxing place to just enjoy the music and so forth. And plus you're looking out over, and like you saw the picture I posted where you have the stands and then you have Everest in the background all lit up, and Everest is beautiful at night the way they have it lit. So we ended up leaving there and just walking over and riding Everest. We got to Everest a little bit after 9, like about the time Rivers of Light was starting, and it was pretty much a walk on at that point. So we enjoyed riding Everest, got off, circled back just as it was ending, and just beat like the rush coming from the theater, and were able to get on in about 5 to 10 minutes. So we got it knocked out twice. And then Everest at night is a really different experience. Like during the day, you can see everything. At night, you're going through that jungle, but it's dark and it's a lot more mysterious. And then as you rise up, you can look out over the horizon. You can see the Orlando Eye in the distance. You can see the Epcot. You can see Spaceship Earth in the distance. You can see all the different stuff in the distance because you're up so high as you're climbing that climb hill at Everest. Plus the other thing, like I've noticed with the dark rides, is because your eyes are dilated a lot more because it's night, you can make out a lot of the stuff inside a lot better. So as you're going through where Disco Yeti is, you can really see them a lot better because your eyes are more accustomed to that level of light. So it really makes Disco Yeti pop that time of evening.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we rode that twice. Then we headed down to Dino Land, USA, and we rode Primeval Whirl. I think I've told you before, I really like Dino Land. I really like Dino Land at night. It reminds me a lot of growing up and being at the county fair or wherever. And like I know it's a lot of off-the-rack attractions, but I think they've done just a really fun job, like turning it into something cool. And at night, I think they just really raise their game at that part of the park. So we kind of hung out in Dino Land for a little while, rode Primeval Whirl, and then we headed back for Rivers of Light. We had a Fast Pass, and the Fast Pass entrance is the stands over by Everest. So we actually walked all the way over there, tapped in, and talked to the cast member there because it was almost full. And the side over by Finding Nemo, they had one section that was full, and the second section out of the 6 that was maybe a third of the way full. And we asked, like, any reason we can't go over? And the cast member told us no. Like, he, in fact, thought it was probably a pretty good idea. So we ended up leaving the Fastback section and went to the standby section and got really great seats in the standby section for the second showing of Rivers of Light. And we looked over, and the whole Fast Pass section was full. So everybody had a Fast Pass. They got into that section. So all the sections were full, all the seats were taken. And then as I looked to my left, as you went further down towards Dino Land, our section was pretty much full at that point. The next section had about half full, and then the last 3 sections were totally empty. So the hack I would say is if you want to see Rivers of Light and you can't get the Fast Pass and they're doing the second show, wait till the second show and just do standby. Because at that point they're not doing the dining packages, or they might only have one section dedicated to dining packages. So you'll be able to get in standby. But I've also found that you can get the Fast Pass a lot easier for the second show.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And plus, was the Fast Pass section full, or did it have some room?
No, the Fast Pass section was full.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was filled up for the second show. Yep.
Interesting that they could get people to get the Fast Passes for it, even though the standby section still had plenty of room. That's interesting. That's good to know.
Well, I think everybody's in this mind frame that you have to have this Fast Pass to get, or the dining package to get into Rivers of Light. But the second showing, because they're not filling hardly any sections at all with dining package, like this, there's so much standby available. And at that point, if you're in Animal Kingdom and you don't have the Fast Pass, you're probably either heading out of the park because it's a half hour after close, or you're heading down to Pandora to see it at night.
Right. It probably goes back to what you were saying about it feeling like it's not as crowded, and I'm sure they're probably figuring out what to do with that, because guests are just getting fast passes because they're being, that's the smart thing to do, right? It's a preventative measure like you guys did, but then you were able to identify the situation and see past what you had for a better opportunity. It's kind of like when people go through security and they get in the long line, and all you got to do is look around and see that there's security guards and tables with one or two people, and you don't have to stand in a line of 20 people. You can kind of move to the side as long as you're being attentive to what's going on around you.
You just have to pay attention. So yeah, we watched Rivers of Light at that point, and I really enjoy Rivers of Light. I think it fits so well into that park, but I know a lot of people aren't as big into that show because it doesn't have the characters and it's not as Disney. But I really enjoyed, which is ironic because I'm the person that really doesn't care for Illuminations. So I'll get beat up because I'm not necessarily the person that likes Illuminations, but my gosh, I do like Rivers of Light. And I think it works really well in that park. So we watched that, and then we headed down to Pandora because we're staying on property. We were able to take advantage of the extra magic hours. And the one thing I noticed, we were there in June, and they've upped the lighting, like the walkway lighting and the ambient lighting is a lot higher than it was when we were there in June. And it definitely has diminished the effect of the bioluminescence sidewalks especially. So I thought that was a little bit disappointing, but I will say when I was in there in June, it was really dark and I could see where there would be some challenges with people tripping over stuff or running into each other because they're not paying attention. But yeah, definitely they've turned the lights up and you're definitely not getting the same level of bioluminescence, especially on the sidewalks, as you had been a month or so ago.
That's too bad.
But it was a clear night, so I was able to get some great pictures. You and I have talked in the past that the one issue is the way they've positioned the park is if it's overcast, you get some light pollution coming from the parking lot, and there's an orangish hue that actually appears above the floating mountains. Since it was pretty much clear that night, I didn't have to deal with that. So I got some really great pictures. And it's something to bear in mind if you're somebody who wants to take some pictures, that on an overcast night, you're going to have to deal with this orange hue if with the lights bouncing off the clouds from the parking lot. On a clear night, you're not going to have that light pollution to deal with.
Mm-hmm. And it definitely impacts your images.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely makes for nice, crisper images when you're not dealing with that light pollution. We actually checked the My Disney Experience. It said that Navi River Journey was a 15-minute wait. And I looked at touring plans and it said that might actually be a little bit higher than what it should be. It turned out it was about a 10-minute wait to do Navi. So we decided to go on and do it, but we waited about 10 minutes to do it. We got off, and as we were getting off, I looked up the hallway where the people coming on are getting on, and I didn't see anybody. So I thought to myself, I'm thinking it might be a walk-on. So we actually left Navi, went around, walked back through the queue, and sure enough, about 10:30, the ride at that point was a walk-on. We were able to just walk right onto Navi River Journey. So we rode it twice in a relatively short amount of time. And after riding it twice, I was a little bit underwhelmed when I rode it in June, and I enjoyed it a lot more. I noticed a lot more detail in it than I remembered, and I really am glad I got to ride it 2 times and kind of really appreciate that. It's a nicer ride than I think I gave it credit for in June.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I'm excited to ride it. I've seen the ride video, so I won't be surprised by any of it. But a lot of people that I know have ridden it said that the videos don't do it justice, and that the attention to detail and the just the aesthetic beauty of the whole thing is very nice to see in person, and so it's worth checking out. Now, I understand it's kind of a short ride. It's only 4 minutes long.
Yeah, it's only about 4 minutes long, but they definitely squeeze a lot of detail into it. I know there's one place where there's creatures walking above you on leaves, and as they walk from leaf to leaf, the leaves actually bounce. There's another place where there's a log across a fireplace, and you see what almost looks like millipedes running around the log. And if you look, you don't notice it until you look closely, but it's actually it's projection technology, just like they're using on the Castle show or the Hollywood Theater. And then there's a waterfall underneath that, and it's not actually a waterfall. It's actually the same thing. It's a projection, and then they just have the water bubbling up. So they have these really neat tricks that they're doing to make things look really neat, but it's not always as it appears. But the animatronic of the Shamanist song is incredible. Got some amazing pictures of her, but like the realism is incredible with her.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of her on your Instagram account, and it's a position I don't think I've seen in any other picture. It really translates the musical aspect of her singing with her arm in the air and her head tilted back. It's really a great shot.
Yeah, I was really pleased with some of the pictures I was able to get out of that ride. I was telling my wife before we recorded this, it's almost like there's 3 levels of dark rides. There's the easy dark rides to get pictures in, there's the medium dark rides, and then there's the handful that just there's no way unless you have really great equipment. And that would be like Haunted Mansion, for example. Like it's just too dark in there to get a lot of good pictures. But I would say that Navi is probably in that middle ground where if you have moderately decent equipment, you could probably get some decent pictures, but I definitely have a lot that I had to toss too.
Oh, awesome. So was that the only ride you got to go on? Well, that's the only, I mean, they only have 2 there, right? So that's the only one you went on, but you went on twice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they have that Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage was showing a 75-minute wait. If it would have been shorter, we probably would have done it. I cannot ride Flight of Passage, unfortunately. I'm too tall, and like it's 100% an issue with my legs. I cannot get my legs to unfortunately fit in that ride vehicle. So unfortunately, it's not something at this point I can experience. But my wife and son have rode it. They rave about it. And if the line ever gets short enough, I'd like to like do the queue just to see the queue. So, like, I told him that if it was like a half an hour, I'd do it with I'd do the queue with them, and then let them ride, and I'd just go and hang around Wind Traders or go get some pictures around the park. Wind Traders, as of right now, does have Banshees, so my son was able to get a Banshee, so he was excited about that. Because I know they had them, and then they ran out, so for our trip in June, they were out, so he was disappointed. So he was ecstatic that he was able to get a Banshee for this trip. So that made him a happy kid, leaving Animal Kingdom that evening with his Banshee.
Yeah, I bet. That's awesome. So it's nice to know that they're restocked. I hadn't actually heard any official announcements, so this was the first time I'd heard that they'd got some in.
Yeah, they are restocked. They did raise the price $10, I imagine, to cover the air freight because they had to fly them in from China as opposed to sending them on a ship. So yeah, they're now up to $59 where they were $49. But it's like anything else at Disney. It's worth it. It made him happy.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll still be flying off the shelves even $10 more. They'll probably keep them at that price, even though the next shipment will come by boat.
Oh, definitely.
All right. Anything else on Sunday?
Pretty much all we did. Nope, that was it. It was actually pretty close to. Actually, it was 11:30 when we did Nevi River Journey, so it was actually midnight at that point. We were heading out. It was just about park close.
Wow, so, another really long day.
Another long day, but we did have a nice break in the middle, so did enjoy that. But yeah, it was a long day.
All right, well, tell me about Monday.
So Monday was our Epcot day. We decided we were going to rope drop Epcot because of the tiering. We had a Frozen Ever After Fast Pass. We decided we were going to rope drop Test Track and then go over and do Soarin'. So we got up about 7:30 and got ready, headed up to Epcot. Got there about 7:45 just as they were opening up and headed for Test Track. Took us about 45 minutes to do Test Track, and then we headed over towards Soarin'. When I noticed that the lines at Frozen Ever After were dropping, so we actually headed up towards Frozen Ever After, and it was showing a 20-minute wait, and switched out our Fast Pass for Soarin'. So the thing I was looking at is the hack I would say is get your Fast Pass for Test Track, and then go at rope drop, go directly to Soarin', because it's going to eat capacity a lot faster because it has the 3 theaters, and each theater holds a like a reasonable number of people. So it's going to take capacity a lot quicker. And then after that, like I've looked at a lot of the charts and stuff, Frozen Ever After peaks like on that rush because everybody goes there right at rope drop. But because World Showcase isn't open yet, it drops off to like 15, 20 minutes about 10 o'clock. And it kind of hangs around there till 11 when World Showcase opens. So the hack I would say is get Test Track as your Fast Pass, go directly to Soarin' because it can absorb the capacity a lot faster, and then go to Frozen Ever After like around 10, and you're going to have that shorter line. And then you can do the Test Track whenever you have your Fast Pass time. Like that's something I would do in the future and something I caught. Yeah.
What's so fascinating by that is
Looked at it every
everybody's
day
got
since then.
a different strategy for Epcot when it comes to those three rides. And I love it. I'm always hearing different strategies. One person says go do Akershus and do Frozen first. We did Garden Grill and did Soarin' first. And you're right, it's a people eater. When we finished breakfast at Soarin', I saw that tsunami wave of people that you saw at the Magic Kingdom coming into the Land Pavilion, and I couldn't get my family up fast enough to get ahead of them, so we ended up getting swallowed by this wave of people, and I felt like we were going to be standing in line for a long time, but that long walk into Soarin' didn't stop until right before we got in front of, we were lined up to see the pre-video with Patrick telling us about our
Yes.
journey, and so we that was the first time we stopped moving, and so you're right, it's just a people eater, and it's it's a definitely a good one to do first.
Yeah, and that's like I said, that's not how we did it, but after looking at it, and it kind of clicked while we were there, and so I've looked at it every day since then, and it's definitely a trend. It peaks like about 9:05. It like between 9 and 9:30, it heads up to about a half an hour, and then after that, it drops down to like 15, 20 minutes, and then after 11, it really starts to build again because at that point, World Showcase is open. And the problem with Test Track is because you have that where you're doing the car design and the fact that they can only load so many cars at a time, it doesn't take capacity as fast. So I think you're better off doing the Fast Pass for Test Track, like going to Soarin' first because it's just going to eat all that capacity, and then you can go up to World Showcase and grab Frozen Ever After during that little bit of lull between like 9:45 and 10:45.
Yeah, well, they rope off World Showcase over there right by Norway. So if you want to get over there for that, around that, then at 10:30, get over there at 20 minutes in line for Frozen, and by the time you're off the ride, it's they're opening up World Showcase, and you're right there in Norway. You're not starting at the beginning of World Showcase. You're starting right there where you can move on to China and Germany and all the other things that everybody else has to now get past Mexico and Norway before they even get to. That's a really good tip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seems like that's the best way. And now, granted, that could change at any point. And I imagine once Guardians of the Galaxy opens here in a couple of years, like everything's going to get thrown out the window. But until then, we'll just live with what we have.
What did you guys do after World Showcase opened up?
Well, we started up. We headed towards Germany, and I had a grapefruit beer, and we had one of the giant soft pretzels. Actually, Casey ended up eating most of that, but I enjoyed my grapefruit beer. It was pretty awesome. And then we decided to head over to Morocco for the last few trips. We've talked about going to Morocco to the Tangerine Cafe and getting the shawarma platter. And our joke is it's a shawarma platter with cheese for some reason. It doesn't really have cheese, obviously. So we headed to the Tangerine Cafe and got our shawarma platter. And Jen and I split the shawarma platter. It was really good. It was definitely outside of our comfort zone. But it was... all the meat was really well done. All the accompaniments were really well done. I didn't personally care for the couscous, and Jen didn't care for the hummus as much, but between us, we were able to find stuff that we really enjoyed, and it was an outside-the-box, fun meal that we were able to do together. And Casey had a little bit of it, but he was still recovering from the fact that he ate the giant pretzel. So we then just
not much room. That's the problem with eating around the world at Epcot is you fill up pretty quick, or at least you can if you eat a giant pretzel all on your own. Was the experience at Tangerine something that you had researched and wanted to do, or was it something that you just discovered on this trip?
I'd heard a lot of good about Tangerine Cafe, and I heard a lot of people say it's one of those kind of outside the box places that's usually not real crowded, but it's really genuinely good food. And we always try to do something a little bit outside the box on each trip, just to kind of put ourselves outside of the comfort zone. On our first trip, like we ate at Restaurant Marrakesh, we've eaten at Boma before. Like we just try to find something that's a little bit outside our comfort zone to on each of these trips because it's not something we have exposure to in Western Pennsylvania. So that's why we decided to do Tangerine Cafe. Just once again, kind of get into that Middle Eastern food that's not necessarily as available where I live, and kind of expose him to a little bit different of a culture.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was talking with some friends about, all the different dining options. There's over 900 places to eat at Walt Disney World on the resort, and it's like, how great would it be to try them all? When somebody says, "Hey, have you eaten here?" It's like pretty often somebody's going to say no because who's really had the opportunity to eat at all those different places? And so, when we go, I like to try different places, but it's sometimes hard to convince my family to try something that's different. So it's great that you guys do that because I get to sort of live vicariously through you and all your different dining choices.
Yeah, and that's actually one of my wife's rules. Like, she was the one that insisted on our first trip a few years ago that we had to do something different, and she wanted to do Restaurant Marrakesh because she remembered thinking it would be really good when she went there as a teenager. And sure enough, we did that. And then, like, the next trip we did Boma. I'm trying to think where we've done a number of places that are just a little bit outside the box just to try to enjoy the different things that are offered there that you might not get anyplace else.
Yeah. I just pulled up the Tangerine Cafe and I'm looking at the shawarma chicken platter and the lamb platter. You did I hear you say that you guys shared that?
We did split it. We got the shawarma platter with chicken and lamb, and it was definitely enough for two people. And it came with like a decent amount of chicken, a decent amount of lamb. It had couscous, hummus, and a salad, like it was a scoop of cold salad. I can't think what it's called. And then also had the cucumber sauce, basically. So you're able to make yourself almost like little gyros.
What'd you guys do after that?
Yeah, it was lunchtime. We continued around, stopped at France, and got the citron orange slush. And my wife and I split that as we walked through England and Canada. And then we rode Figment and Soarin'. And then we headed out for the day. And we headed off to Olivia's for a early dinner.
Tell me about Olivia's.
So Olivia's is one of those restaurants we've heard about. That it's really good. We've heard a lot of positive things about it. But it's at Old Key West, so it kind of slips under the radar. And we hadn't even really thought about doing it, except that they actually did the additional 10% AP discount. So if you go during a dinner hour, except between 6:30 and 8, you actually get 30% off your meal. So we went to Olivia's. Like I said, we'd heard good things about it. Never had been to Old Key West. It was someplace we wanted to see. And it's a beautiful resort. I can see why it's so well regarded amongst the people with Disney vacation clubs. It's a beautiful resort. It's very sprawling. And Olivia's was a nice, quaint little restaurant. We went in, we had conch fritters as an appetizer, which is something very true to the Key West theme that they're going on. Obviously, conch is big down in that part of the country. And then Jen and I both had southernmost fried chicken, which is something that they're known for. And my son had a calamari and shrimp po' boy. So the three of us, we had an appetizer. Casey had a sandwich, and Jen and I both had the chicken dish. And then we split. They have a banana bread pudding sundae, which was absolutely incredible. It was a piece of banana bread that was made into bread pudding, and then obviously topped with ice cream and then banana Foster sauce, and it was amazing. So the three of us ate there with our tip for right around $75. So it was it was what you would expect to pay for that type of dinner, but it was really good, and it was someplace that maybe slips below the radar a little bit, but I definitely recommend going there if you're looking for a nice, relaxing meal of just good comfort food. The interesting thing I thought about it, though, is you'd think Key West, they would have light and refreshing options, but I had fried chicken. It was a piece of chicken breast that was breaded, covered with white gravy, and then home-style mashed potatoes, which were also covered with white gravy. and then we had this banana bread pudding dessert. So both of these were like really heavy dishes. It's not something you would think about that they'd be doing down in Key West where the heat's so hot. But like, it was good comfort food. So yeah, it was really good and definitely lived up to the expectations that we had for it. So I really enjoyed it. Then we had actually brought our clothes with us, so we went over from Old Key West, you're right there by Disney Springs and Typhoon Lagoon, so we just shot right over to Typhoon Lagoon, and we enjoyed an evening got to Typhoon Lagoon, enjoyed a couple hours at Typhoon Lagoon that evening before we headed back to the Magic Kingdom.
You know, for all those people that don't buy park hopper passes, you really are setting the bar pretty high, letting them know what all the options are. Epcot in the morning, let's go to Old Key West, then let's head to the water park, then let's go over to, you're practically doing 3 parks a day, it seems like, or at least the potential of just about every day. You're really packing it in. It's great. So what'd you do when you got back to Magic Kingdom?
So we got to Magic Kingdom. We actually got there a little bit later. It was about 8:30, so we ended up getting up towards the front of the hub, so we were pretty much right up against the castle. It was a view I wanted to see of Happily Ever After. I knew I'd be compromising my fireworks view, but I'd get really good visual of the projections. I ended up taking a few hundred pictures I think I have just about every scene, like, as a picture of the castle during the projection portion of the show. So it was definitely a different way to look at Happily Ever After. The park was open till 11 that night, and I love Magic Kingdom at night. And as much as I dislike Tomorrowland during the day, I love Tomorrowland at night with all the neon and the music. So after Happily Ever After, we walked over to Cosmic Rays, and I was a little bit thirsty. We had a heavy dinner, so got some ice water, sat down for a few minutes, drank our ice water, and then headed into Tomorrowland. And we had a fast pass that I had gotten for Space Mountain. But when we headed over that way, there was a pretty considerable line to get into the fast pass. But we looked over, and Astro Orbiters had next to no line at all. And we hadn't ridden Astro Orbiters in a few trips, so we decided to get in line. And it was about a 20-minute experience altogether. Unfortunately, Astro Orbiter just isn't a ride you can do quick. So we were in this, they ran one set of elevators. The second set of elevators we were in, and then we rode. So, like I said, it was about a 20-minute turnaround. But the Astro Orbiter is so much fun at night, and it's so much different experiencing that ride and that section of the park at night. Like being able to look over and see Main Street USA all lit up, and then a second later being able to see the castle all lit up. And Once Upon a Time, and Once Upon a Time was going on at the same time, so that was really neat to see all that as we're spinning around on the Astro Orbiter. Came down, and by that point the line for Space Mountain had died down, and so we had promised Casey that we'd do Space Mountain at night. And sure enough, my theory about the eyes being a little bit more dilated made Space Mountain a lot more enjoyable at night. It was still obviously dark inside of there, but you could see the stars a lot more clear. You could see the space station and the planets moving around on the ceiling a lot better. So that's what we were talking about. Probably moving forward, we'll just do Space Mountain at night from now on, because it just seemed to be so much better of an experience. Just with our eyes being dilated for the night. So rode Space Mountain, had a fantastic, had a great time on Space Mountain, got off there and headed towards the People Mover. Short line to get on the People Mover, and once again, it's just the perfect nighttime attraction, going through all the neon and stuff up above and looking down, and just rode the People Mover, and it was about 5 till 11 by the time we had done all of that, and came around to the top, and there was no line, so we asked the guy if we could stay on, and sure enough, he said we could, so we just rode People Mover one more time. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, and then by the time we got off, the park was closed, or the rides were shut down. Obviously, the park wasn't closed, so we headed out of Tomorrowland and started towards Main Street. But it was a fun evening, and just headed down Main Street and kind of just enjoyed taking Main Street in at that time of the evening. Once we got out, had the same experience. The ferry looked like it was a horrible line, and the express monorail was lined clear down a ramp heading towards the exit, and just walked right up to the ramp and got on the first resort monorail that came along. So, yeah, definitely was a great experience that evening, and the resort monorail trick worked again. So hopefully that trick keeps working.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that was what, Monday, and you haven't slept
That was
yet
Monday.
since you got there.
Yeah, it feels like it. Well, no, we slept really good. It's just really short sleeps each time.
Yeah, you
So,
squeeze it all into 6 hours.
So because we were flying out on Tuesday, we decided that we were going to open Blizzard Beach. That would give us some time to kind of get everything together, get packed up, and kind of give us a little bit of a chance to sleep in. So we decided we were going to go to Blizzard Beach and then do Hollywood Studios, since we weren't able to do Tower of Terror on Saturday because it had the shutdown issue. We adjusted our plans to do it later in the day on Tuesday. So got up, did all our packing, and then we went to Pop Century, their cafeteria, for breakfast. They had a really good breakfast there. They had a breakfast flatbread pizza. It was very good. And then we had the chicken fried chicken, which was a piece of chicken fried chicken with eggs and sausage gravy. And then a flatbread pizza was just a regular flatbread pizza with sausage gravy, eggs, bacon, and ham. And it was a nice breakfast. Like, I don't remember the meals from Pop being that good the first time we went. So we really enjoyed that. Headed over to Blizzard Beach, and Jen and I decided we weren't going to change. Like, I didn't want to have to go through the hassle of... So just went to Blizzard because that's the park Casey preferred. Let him ride Slush Gusher, let him ride Summit Plummet one time, and then he rode a couple of the slides. And we were out of there about 11:30, so we were there about an hour and a half. By the time we were leaving at 11:30, it was getting crowded. Like, it was going to be a busy day at Blizzard Beach. I actually saw a picture that somebody else had posted on Twitter from Typhoon Lagoon that day, and like literally Lazy River was body to body to body to body. So it was a hot day that they weren't calling for storms, and it was really crowded. I'm glad we got out of there about 11:30 because you could see it already starting. So after that, we headed over to Hollywood Studios, and we had fast passes for Midway Mania, Muppets, and Tower of Terror. So we did our Muppets, and only reason we did Muppets is we like the show, but at the end of the day, the way the tiering works at Hollywood Studios, if you have to use 2 tier 2s and a tier 1 before you can get your 4th fast pass. But it seems like with them increasing the capacity with a 3rd track at Midway Mania, that there's fast passes available, but you have to clear that 2nd fast pass to get it. So we took the Muppets just knowing that we could use that fast pass as a way to clear out our 2nd tier 2 fast pass. Unfortunately, our Tower of Terror got canceled again.
Oh no.
So we headed to Star Tours because it was one of our alternative options. And it ran into a little bit of a glitch with my Disney experience. So we tapped in at Star Tours, and I was trying to get my Midway Mania 2nd fast pass, and it wouldn't let me have it because even though I did 2 tier 2s, it didn't register that I'd done them. So I then tried to get a Muppets because I could get a Muppets right at that point, but it wouldn't let me get another Muppets because I'd already had one. So I ended up having to get a Disney Junior. So we got a Disney Junior, walked over to Disney Junior, tapped in, and just left. And that cleared it out, and sure enough, 10 minutes later, I was able to have a fast pass for Midway Mania. So we got to the park right around noon. We rode Midway Mania twice, Star Tours, and did Muppets. And we were out of the park about 2:30, 3 o'clock. So we had to drop our tote off at Pop so they could pick that up. And then we headed to Disney Springs. One thing that we found is like a nice little tradition for us is we always go down and get Earl of Sandwich and take it back to the airport. And eat Earl's sandwich at the airport. We ended up, though, because the line wasn't too bad at Earl's sandwich at that time in the afternoon, we decided we were going to get poutine. And we were thinking that the poutine was going to come in a relatively small bowl, so we got 2 poutines. Here they came in a decent sized bowl. So we had these 2 poutines that we got down about 4 o'clock. So we ate our poutine and then had our sandwiches in tow, went to the airport. Really, like, I love driving in Orlando. The roads are really well done. You can tell they've been designed this century, unlike, unfortunately, Pittsburgh, where the roads are sometimes a little bit goofy. But the roads are pretty well done in Orlando. Got to the airport, and all you do with the rental car when you're dropping off at one of the places that have an on-site lot is they have a place in the garage where you just pull in, they scan you in, and then you're just right across from the terminal. Printed out our boarding passes and headed for security. The one thing I recommend to everybody when it's flying out of Orlando, especially if you're going to do it frequently, is get your TSA pre-check. The line is so much better. It's so much quicker. So I recommend anybody do that. And then we just headed back and headed across and waited for our plane to come.
And now you're home and you're having to deal with the Disney blues.
A little bit. We're just trying to recover. It was a long trip this time.
Long trip, and you guys were going the whole time. I'm impressed because, man, I get good 2 days, and I need a whole day off just to recover from that. You had 3 days straight, and then you did an extra half day before going to the airport and flying home. When's your next trip?
We're taking honestly, we're taking a little bit of a break right now. We're gonna probably not till October. I don't want to say we're all Disneyed out, but just need to kind of take a step back and kind of just let it sink in and kind of enjoy the fact that we've been able to go so much this year. So we're looking at October probably for a couple's trip, and then we're looking at November, like the week after Thanksgiving, for a Christmas trip.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, you're going to go before your annual pass expires, right, in November?
Well, we got our annual pass during the 13 months, so our annual pass actually hangs over till December.
That's awesome. Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Super smart.
Yeah, on one pass, we're going to get probably 8 trips in.
Wow. That's fantastic. Well, you, sir, are definitely a pro when it comes to hacking Disney in every possible way. I'm exhausted just from hearing your trip. I want to give everybody that's made it this far into the show a chance to find out more about you. I found out about you on Instagram from your account, King of WDW, where you also have a website with a blog, King of WDW, and you could take a minute to talk about that. But I also want you to talk about your newest Instagram endeavor, which I just love. I've liked every single thing you've posted there. Totally interested and fascinated and can't wait to see more. So why don't you take a minute to tell us about that?
Okay, so King of WDW, it's Twitter, it's Instagram, and it is a website with a blog. And most of my blogs are more just kind of my commentary on current events happening at the park. I did one recently about how I perceive Disney's having a little bit of a Pandora problem, how I thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever, and I think a lot of people did, but after experiencing it, I think I could see why it's not having the attendance impact that everybody expected, and how that translates to maybe the future of Epcot and what that's going to do with budgets and so forth. The thing that I've started recently, and it was just kind of one day I posted a picture of the Chinese theater at Hollywood Studios, and it was after they had announced that it was closing, and I decided to do it in grayscale, and the picture turned out amazing. And I was kind of motivated all of a sudden that I need to just post a whole page that's nothing but grayscale photos. So I have Grayscale Disney World. It's grayscale _ Disney World. And all it is 1 or 2 pictures get posted a day. And all they are black and white photos. It's no commentary, no me waxing poetic about anything. All it is a black and white photo and some hashtags. I'm not even following anybody on that page. If you want to follow it, I welcome you to come enjoy it. I think I throw out a really nice picture every day or so, but it's not the Instagram account where I'm doing my content. It's not the Instagram account where I'm commenting on current events or It's just purely a photo-driven Instagram account.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. And you know what's amazing is the fact that you can see pictures of happily ever after in black and white, in grayscale, and they look every bit as striking and wonderful as they do in full color. I don't know how you do it. I think it's one of the best accounts that I follow on Instagram, especially Disney accounts. The images are striking. We had talked earlier about a picture of the archway over Tomorrowland and how the fact that in color it kind of looks a little blah, but in black and white in grayscale, it's very high contrast, but it's very striking and it's beautiful to look at. I really love it.
Yeah, the interesting thing that I found with this grayscale count is I've always been straightforward. I use Lightroom to enhance the photos and just get the best out of all my photos. And I spend a lot more time playing with Lightroom to get these black and white pictures right, because like you have to use so much more extremes as far as your sliders go. But yeah, I spend a lot more time on the black and white photos than I do on a lot of the color photos, because the nuance is so much more subtle. You're not trying to do color, you're trying to do tones and trying to convey what the colors would be. So you tend to go a lot more extreme with your contrast, or you tend to dial down your blacks. Like you do a lot more work in Lightroom than you do on the colored ones. I was really surprised about that once I got into it.
Yeah, they remind me of the old, 1950s era Disneyland pictures in a lot of ways. They just, there's something about that there's a nostalgia to it that I really am attracted to. I really think it's great. So anybody that's listening, go check out grayscale_Disney World on Instagram. And that's Mark's account. He's posting pictures there every day. It's really fantastic. Mark, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and telling me your trip. And I know that we've got some other ideas of some other shows to do down the road. So we'll definitely do those. I want to talk more about photography. I want to talk about transportation from the Northeast, and maybe we can loop Jennifer in on that one and have that conversation, because I know you guys have a couple of different opinions. So it'd be nice to have a little contrast in our conversation. But I really appreciate it. I appreciate your friendship, and until next time, just have a great week and try to get a little rest. Okay.
Yep. Thanks for having me. And as always, thanks Phoenicians.
That's right. Thank the Phoenicians. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.